cloud at the moment. Folks, everybody, this will be recorded. So if you don't want that, you can get off now. We want to make sure that people have an opportunity to go back to see this, and then also we can make sure that this is available for folks who may not be able to join us at this time. So welcome, everybody. I am Ann Peterson. I am with the Montana Innovation Partnership based at Montana State University's TechLink Center. We are funded. I want to make sure that I shout out to my funding partners by the Small Business Administration through the Federal and State Technology Partnership Program. That program is specifically designed to help support early stage tech founders who want to learn about and participate in the SBIR and STTR programs. I'm also funded by the Montana Department of Commerce with additional help from Montana State University, of course, but I serve everybody in Montana, as well as those who are partnering with Montana universities or TechLink Center. What is TechLink Center? TechLink Center is the national partnership intermediary. That really means a broker or a liaison between Department of Defense and VA labs with basic research technologies, technology transfer, patents, other types of technologies that they have developed in their labs, and they would like to partner with small businesses, any businesses, but the majority are small businesses, to actually take that technology, further develop it, make sure that it's ready and available to be commercialized. So if you are looking at technology transfer opportunities for the Department of Defense or any VA technologies, take a look at techlinkcenter.org, a very easy website to search and try to find additional technologies that may benefit your overall technology portfolio for your business. And I'm speaking fast. I will slow down as appropriate, but I want to make sure that we get to introducing our guest speaker today and collaborator. Jim and I will go back and forth today. I'm really, really lucky to have Jim as part of the team. If you are not familiar with Jim, he is nationally recognized, nationally serves many organizations to help them with their SBIR outreach and training, as well as really in-depth proposal reviews for our clients. That is probably one of the key benefits that we offer our clients, is really helping them to make sure that they have really valid expert feedback on their proposals, regardless of agency, before they actually hit submit, so that we know that, and you know that you're submitting the best possible application that you can at the time. So thank you. Today, what we will do is kind of look at some SBIR basics, just to level set things. I am expecting that many of you are somewhat familiar with SBIR, but we'll go over that. And then we're going to really get deep, do a deep dive in the time that we have on looking at the currently available SBIR, STTR topics for Department of Defense. So what is SBIR? We'll try to do this SBIR 101 in 10 minutes or less, or maybe the next 7 minutes, we'll see. SBIR and STTR, they are sister programs started in the 80s, specifically designed to really bolster our nation's technical prowess. They want to see the advancement of the strength of technologies coming out of the US to serve both mission agency needs as well as society as a whole. Over $4 billion of investments were made in fiscal year 2021. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of these things. And actually, let's go ahead and look at that. I wanted to make a note, like in that mission, maybe back real quick. And this is a little editorial, but not really. It's appropriate for this. I want to make sure that you notice on this mission statement, other than the title of these programs, the missions don't talk about small businesses. The focus is on really tactically leveraging the expertise, the agileness, the innovation of small businesses, early stage tech founders, or companies that are nimble to address really important mission needs of these agencies. And those mission needs can be specific to the agency, their agency programs, or they can have broader, broader societal benefits are looked for, like NIH or National Science Foundation, for example. But we're going to be talking about DoD today. So I really want to make sure that you're thinking about this. focus on the agency needs. That's what they're using this. That's why they're leveraging this program, is they're looking at small businesses, not because they think small businesses are so cute and they want to give them money. They want to leverage your expertise, your agileness, to really further their needs. The missions, or the agencies that are participating in SBIR and STTR there are 11 different agencies. Department of Commerce kind of oversees both NIST and NOAA. But as this slide shows, you have the majority of the budgets for the SBIR programs is allocated to the Department of Defense. It is the largest program agency in our nation, and hence also has the largest percentage of their extramural R&D budget that goes to the small business innovation research and small business technology transfer programs here. And we'll look at a couple of other things there. You'll note here a little bit difference between grants and contracts. I'll touch on that quickly. But first, before we go on, why would you even consider SBIR funding? What's the advantage to this? Why not just go get regular contracts or go in a different way? You certainly can. And here are some reasons why SBIR is really a great program. It is seed funding specifically for early stage technology development. Now, that may mean that you're actually an early stage technology company as well, but you may have been around for a bit, but still qualify as a small business. But you're developing innovative new things that can address an important unmet need. It's non-dilutive capital. The government is not going to take an equity stake in your business. You have specific rights in the technology data, the SBIR data, the technology that is developed with SBIR funding, that if properly marked and articulated, you have protections for up to 20 years for that intellectual property that's developed with this type of funding. And so we're talking about early stage technology. I think many of you may have talked to potential investors, perhaps, things like that. And a very common thing that you may hear if you have something that's more kind of still in the idea phase is come back to us when you have 100 customers or something like that. Some of this technology is too early stage to attract outside investment. You need to still prove the concept. And that's where the government is taking really that risk position right now. So this is a brilliant program from that aspect. And as very appropriately for DoD, those data rights that I talked about, that intellectual property protection, that ties into the opportunity as practicable for you to assert sole source acquisition rights if there's a specific program that has a specific technology need that your SBIR or STTR developed technology can address. There's a way to assert some sole source contract because you're going through a competition already in this process. And if you receive an award, that competition plus those SBIR data rights provide you this opportunity to have non-disclosure so that you can assert some sole source data or competitions or awards, excuse me. And I'm going to leave it at that. It is something that as a small business company, you need to be taking ownership of and understanding, but it does not mean that you don't have the responsibility of building those relationships with your Army or Navy or Air Force or other DoD customers. Anything? I'm going really fast. Jim, you feel free to jump in at any time.
Yeah, I've been hanging out. I've been hanging out in North Carolina, so I'll try to not talk too slow and upset you here. But a couple of other comments on this slide. When Ann says de-risk for later investors, it's not only does it potentially bridge the gap between where you are today and having access or interest by those investors at a later time, but when they are interested, you'll pay a lower price for them because you've de-risked the project. You've taken away the technical risk. So that's very important. Another one is when you go up to someone and just say, hey, I've got this technology, and they're looking at you like, so is Christopher real or is he one of those crazy types? You know, and they're not quite sure. And he talks about this technology and we're still not sure. But then he says, oh, and by the way, I've got SBIR award. it's like, oh, well, he must not be a crazy type because he wouldn't have gotten this award. So this is a program, or these are programs to help differentiate you as credible innovators from the crazy inventor types that may or may not have ideas that actually work.
Yeah, brilliant. Exactly. It really validates your technology, your team, for other outside investments as well. Let's look at this. I'm going to take the acronym of SBIR. Well, I'll talk about the differences between the two programs real quick in a little bit, but let's just look at this. What are they looking for? What are we trying to assess with SBIR? So small business, you do have to be a US based, majority US owned, small business. You have to be for profit. So I love nonprofits and co-ops and things like that, but the focus is also meeting those mission needs of the agencies. And one of the best ways to do that is to have a for-profit company build something that people will buy. You do have to have under, by the regulations currently, are under 500 employees, and that includes all affiliates. Everybody in Montana qualifies for that. Most people here are qualifying for that. And also just a little added thing for the SBIR program specifically, this type of funding is not for, it is again, research funding. It is not for buying capital equipment, real estate, things like that. It is for the research and development projects. So you should have an element of your company that is based on R&D. Innovation. So this slide can vary a little bit by agency, but overall, what are they looking for? They're looking for something different. They're looking for something that they cannot currently address with options that are out there right now. There is a call to even at the DoD to try to acquire commercially off-the-shelf products as appropriate as possible. But they're making these calls because what's out there, what's available right now, it does not currently adequately address the types of needs that they have. So your innovation should make a difference, and certainly from DoD's standpoint should have really a way of improving the way they're currently trying to address this an important need. It should have market pull. You should be able to take this technology and transition it to the DoD, but also hopefully, because they'd like you to stay in business, have something that may be applicable to the civilian market as well. But you really should be addressing a commercializable product, something people will buy. It should be high risk. There should be enough in there that that's unproven. You still have to have that proof of concept. And we'll wave our hands a little bit with some of the commercial solution offerings. We'll talk about a little bit later on and what that means, but there still is an element of proof of concept. Is this commercial solution offering, is this product that maybe is out in the world right now, is it applicable? Can it address the important unmet needs of the DoD? And that's where your proof of concept will be. And scale. You want to make sure, they want to really make sure that you're going to be able to take this and be an eventual provider of that solution to the DoD.
So, Ann, on the other side of scale is also the military is going to wonder, can your little 3-person company in Bozeman actually produce and deliver adequate quantities of this innovation for their needs? Right. And that may be a situation where your credibility becomes enhanced by teaming with a larger organization, subcontracting to a larger organization that maybe ends up taking the lead on the phase 3 efforts, at least as they come to producing the product for the military.
Yeah, absolutely. That assessment of you as a team is going to be kind of come back here as well, is that they're going to be looking at, can you actually deliver? And for many programs, especially within the DoD, any larger acquisition programs, larger systems, plan on partnering. And I think we talk a little bit about that later too. Plan on partnering with a systems integrator. Anything that you can do to really represent your team, and that team doesn't have to be just the employees. It can be advisors. It can be subcontractors or sub-awardees that you are bringing in on that project. They want to see that you're really building out those partnerships, relationships, as well as employees eventually to be an effective, really acquisition partner for the Department of Defense. With this research, so this is, again, a generalization, but if we're going to ask about how do people review, how do these agencies review and assess your proposal? These are research proposals, remember. So if you're just saying, hey, I just need to go buy a CNC machine, and then I can get a bunch of things manufactured, this is not the type of funding for this. This is research. So they're going to be looking at the intellectual merits of this high risk, deep tech or unproven technology. They're going to look at the impact. They're going to look at how does this really have, is there a good ROI on this? Will this be able to scale? Will this really meet an important need, both for the DoD as well as broader society? Would be lovely. I'm going to say DoD is going to they're really interested in their needs overall. So always think first about what does the DoD need? But then as we talked, they're going to look at your company and team. They want to see that you can actually aggressively get this to market. So you are going to have to learn how to run that acquisition gauntlet with the DoD acquisition process. So 3-phase program. This is just a very quick overview of SBIR 3 phases. Phase 1 is proof of concept, feasibility, discovery, and you're going to be really testing out and de-risking a couple of key objectives that if you can confirm that they are a go, that's going to really de-risk the technology development in the future. That if you're successful with phase 1 and you go on to phase 2 is when you actually do that, hopefully you have at the end of that time frame your minimum viable product. You have that really strong prototype. That's the core research and development. Discovery phase, phase 1, is about anywhere from 3 to 6, maybe 12 months, depending on if it's SBI or STTR or one of the other ones. Prototyping can be up to 2 years. There are additional potential supplemental phase 2 options, but your first phase 1 and your first phase 2 are purely SBIR funding, no matching requirements, no nothing else. Sometimes the supplemental phase 2 or extensions will ask for some type of matching funds. Phase 3 is really a misnomer in the sense of it's not SBIR money. It would come from some other source. So that can be either direct sales transition into the program, or additional research and development or other types of investment funding that will help you to kind of get it over to that last finish line to get a commercially viable product. Jim, I would
add on phase 1 on discovery, it's also the agency discovering what you're about and whether you are good people to work with. Do you keep in touch? Do you do what you said you were going to do? Do you solve your own problems but keep them informed? Are you somebody they want to continue to work with for those 2 years of phase 2 and umpteen years in phase 3? So just remember, in phase 1, it's not just proving your idea works, it's proving you're someone that they would want to work with. And that can be a balancing act between being a pain in the patoot by bugging them too much, but at the same time being too aloof and not staying in touch. So it's an important second requirement, I think, in phase 1.
Yeah, I think that's really an important thing to point out is in either of these cases, don't just take the money and run, right? You're building a relationship. If this is an opportunity, DoD contracting under SBIR, STTR, they are your customer. There's no question. We talk about customer discovery all the time. Like, well, who's my customer? If you're doing DoD, they're going to be one of your target customers for sure. So build those relationships, work with, understand. And Jim's probably heard me say this a million times. My background is in sales. And I'm going to tell you, probably 80% of a salesperson's job in a complex sales process is to understand how the customer buys. Boy, if you can really understand and work with them on how they buy, who you need to know and assess the problem with from your customer side, you are over halfway there. You have the technical sale, you have all the contracting, et cetera. But understanding how they buy is really important. It helps that it really is a relationship process.
And while there are exceptions, I'd say the vast majority of SBIR STTR topics, the military expects you to make them your first primary priority customer. You might do other customers later. You might do other services within DoD later, but they want you focused on them. And a very common mistake we see is the commercialization discussion in the proposal will talk about selling to third parties, selling to industry, selling to consumers, and virtually ignore the military or the proposals going into Army, and it talks all about ships and the Air Force. And you know, again, ignoring the customer. So be very focused in the proposal, regardless of what they say about dual use and what you want to do maybe ultimately with the technology. The proposal really needs to focus on the agency that you're sending it to as being at least your initial priority customer.
Yeah, brilliant. Exactly. I have this slide here for a reason, folks. There is a difference between contracts and grants. DoD SBIR, STTR are awards, are contracts. And that's a distinct difference. They, even in their quote unquote open types of offerings, we'll look at one or two of those perhaps. The goal is that you are specifically addressing an important Department of Defense need. You're looking at their stakeholders. They have, and most of their topics are very specific. They know what they need. Don't tell them what they need. Tell them how you might help them solve it. So it's very specific. The contracts are acquisition, procurement types of contracts, and they expect very specific deliverables. Whereas granting agencies, not any less important. They still expect delivery on these, but they are investigator initiated. They are open to seeing what you are proposing to address an important unmet need versus having really clear definitions on what will be done. And we'll see this a little bit more detail when we look at some of the topic descriptions a little bit later.
If you want to irk the military, talk to them about their SBIR grant program. And they get really upset about that. And if you study this slide, you can see why, because they're thinking contract. We've got a mission, we've got a problem with accomplishing the mission. We need the small businesses' help on solving the problem. We need the small business to be focused on the problem. We need a solution. We need the solution implemented to the problem. That's what they're thinking is contract. And you're over there talking grant, like, oh, I'll just kind of futz around and I'll come up with something that I think is really interesting, and I might peripherally talk about your problem, but there's some really other interesting research I want to do. And that's not where the military wants to go. Again, there'll be some exceptions like AFWERX in their open topic, but the 99.9% of DoD's topics, they tell you what they want and they need it to solve a problem or meet a mission need. And you need to be focused on that, not out in la la land exploring things that you think are fun and interesting that are irrelevant to that problem.
Yeah. And I'll go back at sounding a little caustic here. Again, it's sort of a small business program. It's not a small business program. It's not about you. I think it's a brilliant tool for you guys to be considering to leverage. But it is it's customer discovery. Meet their needs. What are your customers' needs? The DoD needs. Be all about them, not about your output. And only take only pursue topics that are in line with what you want to do for your company. I'm not against that for sure, but don't try to change their mind. They know what they want. Quickly about SBIR, STTR, there is a difference between them. They are sister programs. Small business technology transfers only the top 5 agencies with the largest budgets participate in STTR, and that is DoD, NIH and Health and Human Services, NASA, I have it here on the slide, don't I? Energy, and National Science Foundation. I think I said them all. They're on the slide. STTR is really, that is the ultimate goal was to ensure that there's kind of technology transfer, collaborations between federally funded research institutions, universities, other federally funded labs, maybe like Sandia or a Department of Defense lab, maybe out of Wright Pat, something like that. It's one of these other labs, and getting that technology into the hands of commercial entities to really take that on. But it also is a collaboration if you're finding that you have a technology, but you really need to build out your team, and you might have to rely on more expertise, more time from outside experts within a university, for example. It gives you an opportunity to subcontract more of your budget under STTR. With Department of Defense, however, there are very specific topics with the contracting agencies. You can't choose if you want to do SBIR or STTR. You have to look for those specific topics, and they're typically looking for earlier stage technologies that they expect are going to take even a little bit longer to get. They're still applied research, but they're kind of just coming out of that basic research standpoint.
Let me emphasize that, Anne, and you know, you guys may be doing keyword searching, which we always recommend, finding topics of interest to you. At the military, you find a topic and you love it, it looks great. One of the first questions you need to ask yourself, is it an SBIR topic or is it an STTR topic? Because the topic is specific to the program, and you cannot submit an SBIR proposal on a topic that's under their STTR program or vice versa. So very early on, it's not only, wow, this looks like a topic we want to respond to, but it's also, okay, what kind of team are we going to have to assemble to meet the requirements, if it's, particularly if it's STTR and is going to require that research institution inclusion.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go ahead. Let's get into looking at these, what's currently active right now. And I say active because there's either in pre-release or some things are already open for submission. But just to make a little bit of a sense, and actually I don't even have everything listed here in terms of how do you look at these codes and whatever. It's sort of important. It's not, don't worry about memorizing all of this. Jim and I get this stuff because we do this all the time. We're talking to people who are doing this all the time, but they have a format. The Department of Defense releases 3 broad agency announcements a year on a regular cycle, but then they have some out of cycle components, but they have some kind of nomenclature. So fiscal year 22, they have the 22 as part of the broad agency announcement numbering. If it's 0.2 or a point number, that means it's an SBIR instructions topics. If it's point B or some other letter, that typically means it is a STTR topic and instructions. I'm going to say the default for this regular. Jim and I, I'm stammering because I don't know what's regular right now with Department of Defense because they have some annual, they call them annual or out of cycle BAAs. We'll look at those in a minute. But generally these, if it's one of the 3 cycling BAAs that they issue a year, this one advertises now, I always default caveat emptor, make sure that you're reading the specific instructions to make sure what are the due dates, when are the submission open windows, when are the due dates due, because they will vary. But generally for this one, 22.2 and 22.B, they are due by June 15th, and they open for the first day you can submit your proposal is May 18th. But we're in a really important time. This pre-release, it's not like a preface of a book. Actually, I always read the preface of books. It's like this pre-release time is, I think, the most important time of a DoD solicitation period. And yeah.
We have a question from David about, does the agency announce funds allocated between SBIR and STTR? I don't think it's typically done explicitly, David. What they'll do is they may indicate to you the approximate dollar amounts that are available under each program, but it will be they'll tell you in the SBIR solicitation or BAA how much money is there for SBIR. They'll say the same thing on STTR solicitation, but they won't show the numbers in the same in one place so that you can really compare them readily. The easiest thing to do is, I think, just remember that, and Ann, I'm trying to remember our percentages now, where SBIR is is it 0.32 now?
Yeah, 3.2%, right?
3.2%,
3.2,
right,
and then
of the extramural budget.
4. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's you know, in round numbers, SBIR is 10 times the size of STTR, so it's a much bigger program. But those percentages of the extramural R&D award budgets are set by Congress.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thanks for catching that.
Mhm.
Thanks, Stu. That answers things. And I didn't, you know, again, folks, chat is a great way. Thank you for that, Dave. Do feel free to put a chat in there. It is a small group, so we're happy to, we may from time to time ask you to go ahead and unmute and talk, ask if there's a question that we might want a little bit more color from. These 2 slides, we'll go over quickly. Again, because I really want to make sure that we get into a lot of the stuff and we have a lot of time for Q&A. But this is just, there are over 184 currently open or in pre-release topics. And the Department of Defense has technology areas and modernization priorities. So that's one way that you can help kind of filter through some of the things. And in which components currently have active topics. Phase 1 SBIR topics are listed here. I won't run them all through there. I just kind of wanted to get, this will be, you have these just kind of as reference. Direct to phase 2 SBIRs. I'm going to talk a little bit about direct to phase 2. We are not going to go into depth here, but you guys, anybody pushes in the chat, if they say, hey, no, I really have a direct to phase 2 topic I'm really interested in, time permitting, we'll definitely talk about it. And I'll tell you why in a minute, why we're not focusing on direct to phase 2. And then phase 1 STTR topics. And that is not just that 22.2 or 22.B, that is all of the currently available broad agency announcements that DoD currently has out right now. So let's go ahead. And Jim, let me go ahead and let you kind of take the lead on this particular slide, because I know it's really kind of talking about, you know, I say it's not just that 22.2. DoD is doing some different things with the way they're putting out SBIR and STTR topics.
Okay. On the kind of the org chart on the left side, again, you've got all of the DoD SBIR, STTR program. They're kind of 3 flavors of solicitations, or as the military calls them, BAAs, that you're going to see, at least currently. It's changed over time, but they're kind of the regular BAAs, and these are the ones that Ann's referring to as point 2 and point B. There are 3 of them scheduled per year, very set schedule, announced in advance. And you know exactly when they're coming out, you know exactly what topics are going to be in them, and the due dates are all the same on all the topics in them. So that's kind of the bread and butter solicitations or BAAs from the military. Then they've got the new out of cycle BAAs, which are more oriented toward the military component having a sudden need or a sudden expectation or a sudden threat, and they'll throw a topic out and say, we're looking for proposals on this one topic, and basically you got 60 days to respond. We're going to pick winners within another 60 days. We're going to have you under contract and working on this problem within 6 months. So it's more of a just-in-time sort of mentality, if you will. And there for a while, as you see by all the purple crossouts, each of the components in military that wanted to do the out of cycle were doing their own BAA, and they've done away with that now, and they're all under what's called the, as Ann said a while ago, the annual BAA. Why they call it annual BAA, that just kind of confuses people. I think it ought to be called the out of cycle BAA, but they don't ask me my opinion. And then you got other, and other pretty much is the Air Force. Air Force marches to a totally different drummer. And earlier slide, and showed you the numbering system. If it's got an X at the start, so if it's like X2022, then that means it's one of the AFWorks or part of the Air Force's special solicitations that they put out for that program, which we'll talk more about here in a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So just it, and part of this, folks, is at least we know we're not going in deep, no test at the end of this, but just you've seen this now. You're like, oh yeah, Anna and Jim talked about something about that, so it's not like, so try to demystify some of the things that you'll see. But there's a method. We've kind of specifically put this information in here for a reason.
But if you find it confusing, you are not the only ones. Ann and I have been deep into this up to our elbows for years, and it's still confusing the way the military is doing it. So it both frustrates me and also makes me mad that the military is making it so challenging for particularly newcomers to understand the system so that they can actively participate in this SBIR STTR program for the military.
Yeah, when the mandate is, when whether it's a mandate or not, when the opportunity is to try to accelerate, and they talk about wanting to accelerate and remove some of the hurdles to DoD procurement and acquisition. Every time they do that, they put one more hurdle in place, I think. When they try to simplify, they just make it more complex. A couple of notes, folks, because we're going to get into some specific topics, kind of to use them as examples, and hopefully they are relevant. But I think regardless, the examples will help you. If you find a specific topic, it'll help you to navigate. What do I need to do now if I do believe that my company should reply to this topic? But before we go on, we talked about the direct to phase 2 topics. We are happy to do this on occasion. We certainly support people who have a direct to phase 2 interest. Know that you have to have something that is already proven feasible. Your technology has, it will be appropriate for the warfighter. And you know what that means? You actually have probably already embedded or working with a Department of Defense program. I don't know that that's a requirement, Jim. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I would say I do not recommend any of my clients, if they do not already have some kind of relationship, and for some reason I'm concerned about their skills at getting to a fast partnership developed with the Department of Defense, either prime contractor or systems integrator, we'll talk about in a minute, or the program itself. I typically don't recommend people do it direct to phase 2, but there are exceptions. Jim, your thoughts on that?
And I can be even more cynical on this, because I'm concerned that some of the direct phase 2s are wired for someone, because for the military to come out with a topic that says, okay, well, you're probably already this far along and we just need you to kind of finish the project. Well, that suggests that they know that somebody's already that far along, which means they've got somebody in mind, they've been working with them, or the company's been marketing to the military. There's something going on there that suggests that it's not a real level playing field. Now, the exception of that is, and DARPA does this, they will come out with a topic and say, look, we'll accept either a phase 1 or a direct phase 2 proposal on this topic. And that is more, in my opinion, more suggestive of a level playing field, that DARPA is trying to say, look, we think probably anyone who responds is going to have to do a phase 1. But gee, if somebody out there just happens to have already done some of this work, we'd be happy to entertain a direct phase 2 and let you skip the phase 1, go straight to the phase 2. That's a lot more palatable, but again, that's DARPA and not necessarily the other components.
Yeah. So we're not, we're happy to talk to you if you think that a direct phase 2 is right up your alley. We'll either talk you out of it or support you in any way you can when we need to. Notice as direct to phase 2 does imply, though, that it is further along. And again, as we talked about STTRs, STTRs for DoD and NASA, they really are expecting those to be pretty early stage. So there are no direct to phase 2 STTRs. STTR does require the part, we talked about this earlier, it does require the participation of at least 30% by budget of a research institution. And it really is, even for SBIR, you can subcontract with a research institution, and as appropriate, that can be a really good way to help add credibility to your team, to show that you have some of that partnership. But just be aware, be careful. There are more hoops, cooperative research agreements that you have to put in place if awarded with any of these entities, and you want to be making sure that those are all checked off. And systems integrators, again, we talked about this before a little bit. Expect that, and this is part of your customer discovery. If you're doing research for a specific DoD program that is affiliated with the topic, try to figure out what systems integrators, the big primes, may be involved in that project, and try to build those relationships as well. But there are certain ones that you'll know, Lockheed Martin or Ball or some other big prime. You're considered the prime on these, but some big systems integrator is there. And so I definitely leverage any types of relationships that you can build with those systems integrators if you know that they're involved with a project that your technology may be fitting into. And if you can add them as a contractor, the subcontractors do not have to be small businesses. That's kind of a cool thing. So you could bring in Lockheed Martin if you wanted to, if you have that relationship with them.
I'd say there's a couple of dangers on this slide, for folks to be wary. One, again, is the big primes. It may be absolutely the best way to commercialize. They may add a lot of credibility to your team. They may bring some very important capabilities, but you also have to be careful that they are in some ways competitors, and you gotta be careful. I mean, they're big enough to eat your lunch, and you hear stories about big companies taking IP and basically feeling you can't do anything about it because you're too small to stop them. So just be careful in those relationships. Having said that, I do know that Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and I'm leaving somebody out, but they have an ongoing interest in SBIR, STTR, and they like the programs. They like teaming with small companies, and that probably helps reduce the probability that they're going to rip you off, because they don't want to get a reputation for ripping off small companies, which would poison that ability to work with ones in the future. The other one, and I'm reminded of this because Ann and I have worked with a company within this past year on an STTR where the university kind of came in with an attitude of, well, this is what we want, and this is what we're going to take, and this is what you have to do, small business, and really just kind of a pompous attitude about the thing. And the company really didn't have a whole lot of choice, and we won't go into details, didn't have a lot of choice, but you just kind of look at that and you go, this is not going to be the kind of relationship that you want in one of these projects, where the university should feel that it's part of your team. They're going to play an important part on the project, but it's your team, and they are on your team, and you're calling the shots because it's your grant or contract in this case. So be careful, try to set up those relationships as far in advance with the university as possible. And if you kind of get that attitude of, we're doing you a favor and we're only doing this for our own self-interest, then you might want to shop it to another university if possible.
Yeah. That's part of that partnership as well. No, that's brilliant and a good example. Take charge of you are the applicant. The small business is the applicant, so you really do have to oversee everything and just make sure that everything is working out for you. So let's get into these. So our most important piece of advice is read the instructions. And we're not trying to be silly and flippant about that, but as we talked about, they have different broad agency announcements. They have different topics. They have different programs. It's not just DoD. We'd love to say it's DoD. They do it all the same. Navy does things differently than Air Force, than Army, than DARPA, et cetera. So we need to, depending on the topic, depending on what you're applying to, you want to make sure that you're gathering all of the right components to really respond effectively, competitively, compellingly to that specific, you're preparing the best proposal possible. So what you'll really want to make sure, at least these three bits of information: the complete topic description, the specific DoD joint instructions for that particular BAA, and then the component specific instructions. So let's look at this. I'm going to go, how do I find these? How do I find these topics and instructions? I'm going to do a couple,
Good luck
scroll
would
through
be
a
a
few
good,
slides.
good
Pardon?
luck would be my answer to that question.
Yeah, good luck.
How do you find good luck? Yeah.
Well, that's why we're here. We're gonna, for those of you here, like lucky you, we're gonna take you through a little journey here. Let me scroll through a few slides here, folks. And I am going fast. I'm glad. I'm sorry if I'm speaking fast, but like, God, there's so much to cover. I really want to make sure that we have time to kind of look at some of these things. Let me scroll through a few slides, and then what I'm going to do is just kind of go into the website, the live website, and kind of pull up based on a few examples, and then we can maybe pop back into some slides for some final strategy tips for you. But right here, there is the Department of Defense, the DSIP portal, Defense SBIR STTR Innovation Portal. But of course, DSIP isn't in the URL. So go to DoD SBIR STTR.mil. That is the core portal. Then they have two options. Back here, they have oh, go ahead.
Excuse me, before you go past this one, I want to, one thing that the military is doing very well, I'll give them credit for, is that lower arrow, the DSIP listserv. The only way, in my opinion, to keep track of the release of all these solicitations, BAAs, topics, and then the removal of some topics or modifications is that listserv. Some listservs from some of the agencies are mediocre. Some of them give you all sorts of irrelevant garbage. This is a good one, and it comes out whenever there's something happening, and it pops up in your email inbox. And man, you're just really a lot smarter about the DoD SBIR STTR program and the topics, both out of cycle and regular, if you get on that listserv. Now, when you click on this button down here that the arrow is pointing to, you're taken to this site that looks like it must be somewhere in Romania or something. You know, there's nothing on it except some tiny little font up at the top saying, well, give us your email address. Right. And you're wondering, oh, is this for real? It is for real. It's just very poorly designed. But I would highly recommend, if you're interested in DoD SBIR STTR, you got to sign up for that listserv.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks for calling it out. Jim's going to slow me down. I go to North Carolina and here over in the West Coast which I should be chill. I'm in Montana, but 2 cups of coffee today. That's what's going on. But yeah, this homepage gives you a lot of key information. It gives you the status on the currently open or active announcements, kind of how much more time do we have for these. You can drill in by those widgets that they're showing there, or you can go to that topic info. And those are really the 2 main ones that I go and access. They also do have a learning portal, which is somewhat helpful. I'll just leave it at that, somewhat helpful. But really those instructions, and then working with, respective folks in your state, or with us, if you're in Montana or affiliated with TechLink, we can help you as well.
And this is where you have to submit your DoD proposal. So you'll have to use this DSIP website. So yeah, get that in your favorites up there. You're going to be seeing this a lot.
Yep. You'll have that login and register too. And that'll be one of the registrations you'll have to do. That's the submission portal here. So here, this is kind of just a screenshot of the topic info search. We're going to go into this live, a screenshot of where you're going to find all of the instructions. They have tabs here at for the different currently active announcements and the instruction guidelines. But
that's go back to that one, Ann. This is a different site than the DSIP. This is the other DoD SBIR website. And as Anna and I were talking about a while ago, DoD says they're making a 3rd one, and I don't know what the 3rd one, if the 3rd one will replace the 2 we're showing you now or somehow supplement it, I don't know. But the DSIP and this are the 2 that you got right now. Personally, I think this one is the better one, because kind of to the middle of the slide here, you can see DoD SBIR 22.2 and the 22.B, which Ann's been talking about.
Yeah.
But if you go to the farther to the right than that, there's the DoD annual SBIR. That's, you click on that, then that links you to all of the components that are doing out of cycle. And then you
Yeah.
can come down and pick up those topics from here. You know, you should be able to do that with DSIP. I find it not as easy because it drops you into the middle of SAM, which God help you if you get down into the bowels of
Oh,
SAM.
that's right.
And the
Yeah.
other difference, I found this the hard way the other day, and the DSIP only lists the topics that are accepting questions. And if they won't accept questions, and sometimes there's a topic where they won't accept questions, they don't list it in DSIP. And so
yeah.
it'll be on this website, but not on the DSIP website. So the DSIP website topic search is good as long as it's a topic that you can ask questions. And it's one of those idiosyncrasies where you're going, why the heck is it that way? But yeah, again, they don't ask our opinion. We just have to try to figure out how these things work.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll go into the live here too, and we'll be able to dig into that because
Okay.
I think it'll be effective for you to see. And I put this slide here. I'm going to reference it back, but I'm going to go live now, guys. I wanted to take a look at a few different. Jim and I did kind of. I ran these past Jim and said, "What do you think? Let's look at some of these." So why, Anne, did you pick these for examples? Because one is a traditional Navy, our steadfast Navy. We love them because they just do things as we expect. No bias there, I guess, but a very traditional topic for SBIR. So I wanted to show you one of those. I wanted to show you something from the Air Force's solutions or commercial solutions offerings. They have, just to confuse us all, they have something under the annual BAA, or they've released some topics, but they also have some in the current, 22.2 kind of supplemental to this. So they again, you want to make sure that you're referencing, not that there are going to be huge differences in the instructions, but you should, if you're going to reply to a specific topic, you want to make sure that you're pulling the specific instructions that are supposed to be addressed for that or used for that topic, just in case things vary. And then I wanted to look at SOCOM. SOCOM has an open call out. That means they're pretty open to things that you're trying to pitch to them, but it's an STTR as well. So that means that they're looking at some of these early stage ideas. They want to kind of see what's going on at the universities or other companies, what's going on that's kind of early. They want to look at that. And then I'm going to look at another more traditional formatted Army STTR, kind of time permitting. We'll take a look. I think even if we get through a couple of these, it'll give you guys a really good sense of how do I navigate this for the topics that we're interested in. So let me go. Oh yeah, before I kind of go live here. And Jim, I want you to throw in this too. This is me. Like if I have a client who's saying, okay, and I'm interested in these, or we're talking about their technology, and we want to look at solicitations and what might be a good fit. First of all, so we're going to identify a topic, and we'll kind of do this with the examples that I'm using. We want to understand the details of the topic. Is there a technical point of contact listed? And are there any references listed? The topic descriptions give you a whole bunch of information about what the DoD is looking for and what they are expecting as a deliverable out of phase 1 and a deliverable out of phase 2. Even though we're not applying to the phase 2, they're going to talk about what they expect for the future too. So that helps inform how you're going to design your research strategy for this proposal. You want to understand which instructions, we've talked about that. What documents do you need to gather to make sure that you're following and paying attention to? When is the open period? Again, remember we said, depending on the BAA, you may have different due dates. So you want to really make sure that you're paying attention to that. So when is it open? Meaning when can I submit? Because prior to that is that pre-release time. You have access to the technical point of contact. You can ask questions privately, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. When are they due? What's the budget cap? There's not one set value for each of these opportunities. So you really want to make sure what's the budget. You should be asking. We're not doing budgets today, but we'll talk later. I think Wyoming has a a cost proposal workshop coming up soon, and then we're doing one in July as well. What is the budget cap for the topic? What's the period of performance? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? What's the format? Do you have to write a white paper, or do you have to submit a slide deck, or both? And what other components are required for a complete proposal? And then you also want to be, we'll give you some tips on, how can you organize this to really make sure that you're getting your team together and all of the components together. So with the kind of proposal preparation guides. So these are in your slides, folks. That is for the cooking show in case I have any trouble going in with the live. But let me pull up I want to make sure I have, give me just a second here. So this is the live version of the slides there, guys. And there we go. I just wanted to make sure that I had as my reference back here, the ones that I'm going to be using here. I can see them here. Okay. So remember DoD SBIR.mil, SBIR STTR.mil, and then it'll always default to adding on submissions.log/login. This is where you're going to be submitting your proposal. We're not going into registrations and doing that, but you do want to make sure that you also take time to familiarize yourself with their submission portal and what's going to be required. Right now, this is kind of a getting started webinar. This is what the listserv that we talked about. Oh, great. And then here is, I'm sorry, I'm looking at chats here. This is the where you can kind of dig in. Again, we were talking about, you can dig into these widgets here, but generally I'm going to go to either the topics right here or the additional program information. That additional topic or additional program information is that other site. So I have these loaded already, folks, just so that we can see this. And then I also have, we'll look at the other site here, this one. Let's go here, topics. And I hope you can see this. Let me know if you want me to make the screen bigger or not. It's big for me, but it may not be for you, but I wanted to kind of get you through that process here.
Looks good. Okay.
So you have this opportunity of, filtering in many different ways. You can do keyword search. For example, if you are electro-optic materials, or if you want to say something about ceramics, or if you want to say something about LiDAR or something like that, you could put that in there and try to find any topic that may look at that that have those keywords in there. But let me go ahead and just go to Navy and SBIR. Why? Because that was the example that I'm using. Let me look at one of those first Navy SBIRs. And you'll see here, this is how it will come up here. Again, so any of those that are open to questions. What's brilliant about this time until May 7th and through May 17th, you have the opportunity to speak directly with a technical point of contact that is affiliated with any of these topics. And you can download these, and I recommend that. And I actually have those screenshots I took were downloading the PDF of this. That is a nice way to look at that. I recommend that you do that because they'll come and change this information when things are open. They'll take off the technical points of contacts names, but download that so you have access to all of the complete information from these topics. And let me go down to the one. I guess it doesn't matter.
And let me I know I've had people that didn't grasp this, so let me emphasize again. When we say pre-release, it means the topic is there, you see it, you can read it, hopefully understand it, there are references. But the beauty of it during pre-release is that you can still talk to the technical point of contact, the TPOC shown here, Brian Freeman and Luis Andre. You can talk to them and you can say, hey, I'm really not clear what you mean by such and such, or would you entertain a software solution, whereas it seems like the topic is leaning more towards hardware, and you can have that conversation. That's during the pre-release period. Now, as soon as the open period starts, and that is roughly a month after the topics are released, then you can no longer talk to them. They go into blackout. And as Ann says, this this listing of the TPOCs will disappear off the website. They'll take it away because they don't want you to even try to contact them. And the only way you can ask those questions at that point is you go into that same site that Ann was showing you, and you click on the Q&A and you ask your question.
Yeah.
And with a little bit of luck, one of the TPOCs come back and answer it. Now, the difference is at that time that you ask your question and the answer to your question is for anybody and everybody to see. So there is no competitive advantage of you over other businesses responding on this topic, because you all now have the same information. And in fact, you may have even benefited your competitors because they didn't think of the question that you asked, and they certainly didn't understand the answer until they saw the answer. So we highly recommend, until May 17th, you're in pre-release, that's your time to get on there and have that conversation with the TPOC.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. It really, and you send a nice little note, and it's, Jim mentioned this, but again, for emphasis, this pre-release time, your conversations are confidential with the technical point of contact. After that, you can still ask questions, but they have to be publicly posted. That is one of the differences between granting and contracting agencies. At granting agencies, you can talk to them up until the day the thing is due, and everything's held confidentially. But this one, this pre-release period time is really, really important. It gives you an opportunity to establish that initial relationship. So again, these recommendations are in your slide deck as well. So I mentioned, so really looking at what the technical, what this, the description of the topic says, that gives you information. Let me go back quickly. You notice this wasn't the example that I was using, but this example here, this integrated high power generation for joint light tactical vehicle. Notice there's a question. Sorry, that tells me that that person was pretty naive. Maybe they weren't able to get a hold of the technical point of contact, but we had enough time. I wouldn't, don't post questions here. Maybe it's an innocuous question that doesn't really tip their hat. Maybe they're asking a clarifying question, but right now you have an opportunity to talk confidentially, privately with the technical point of contact. Go ahead and do that. Of course they're busy. Of course they're fielding a lot of questions from people. So do it respectfully, reach out. But I would, that tells me this person doesn't know how to work with the DoD SBIR program. That's okay.
I agree.
But here, so we know technical point of contact is listed here. Brian Freeman, Louis Andrell. They both have, one has a Navy, one has a Marine Corps. So right there, that's telling me that, this may have applications to the Marine Corps. So understand where that's about. But this is interesting, right? This topic is celestial navigation. So we're not talking about GPS, or actually, are you talking about like a sextant or something? Are we back to the old days? But there's a probably good reason to make sure that we have technologies that can leverage things that are less intrusive to cyber attacks, things like that, that can be kept more private. So navigating off the stars, it's interesting. Interesting though, also, I want to make sure that we see this. They have, the technology areas, the modernization priorities. I think that can be somewhat relevant, the keywords. That's kind of for their own searching, things like that. But notice the objectives. This is ITAR. This is not all topics are ITAR restricted. But I don't know, Jim, if you wanted to talk about a little bit more about ITAR, this is a consideration for you to think about. This is going to limit your ability to sell this solution to anybody outside of the Department of Defense because of the restrictions on who it can be sold to. So
yeah, there seems to be more attention on the ITAR than there has been in the past, and other things to do with foreign involvement in your project or your company, particularly at the military. But hopefully, again, at least they're making you aware that that's going to be a concern in this topic. And so you ought to be talking about the U.S. military, First Navy, and Marine Corps. And that was a good catch that Ann had, to see that one email was Marine Corps, one was Navy, suggesting there may be two parts of that agency that are interested in this particular topic. But that's kind of your initial market, and then what other applications could you have? But this alerts you that, don't start thinking that you're going to be able to sell this to every other country, military, or even for civilian use in other countries. There are going to be some restrictions on it.
Exactly. So something to think about. The description, they give you a whole bunch of background. This is something that should not be avoided for sure. And that'll tell you why this is important, what they need, why they need this. And then they're going to describe for you what they expect as deliverables for a phase 1 project, really. Now, is this everything? Did they give you the outline for your proposal? No, not necessarily, but this definitely should inform how you are responding to this. They're trying to confirm and itemize what they want delivered. And then they're also going to give you that peek in the future, what they expect for your phase 2. That can absolutely help how you prepare your phase 1 proposal as well, because in your phase 1 proposal, you want to be talking about the objectives that you will be performing under phase 1 to prove feasibility. But you also want to be describing how, by doing those things, by completing that research, that gets you to phase 2 and sets you up to get a head start and started and position yourself well for phase 2. And then it also gives you that end goal in terms of phase 3 applications. What types of systems might this go into? And you can actually look at, this gives you not contacts, it's not giving you the program director or the program contacts for this, but it's going to give you some information that will help you to learn about where can I find more information about how I can do business with that specific component within the Marine Corps.
So you read this topic and you say, oh, that's not of interest to me, I don't want to do that. Then don't force a fit.
Yeah.
Or don't say, oh, I think you guys are wrong, I think you should be looking at a little different vehicle. No, they told you what the vehicle is. You need to solve the problem with this vehicle. If you don't want to do that, then move on, go to some other topic. But, respond to this topic if you want to, and it looks interesting. If it isn't, then go to something else. Don't try to force a fit.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great thing, because again, this is a brilliant example of, we know what we need. We just need someone to help us to get it there. We want to see your solutions. We want to see how you do this, but don't tell us what we need. Tell us how we solve it.
And look at how many times, and look at how many times Marine Corps shows up in the phase 1, phase 2, and dual use. Do you get the impression that this is going to be used by the Marine Corps, and that maybe in your proposal you got to be talking about the Marine Corps? And it's kind of slapping you upside the head, but you'll be amazed how many people write a proposal, never mention Marine Corps, maybe not even mention the Navy, and they may not even talk about the ship. They may talk about some generic craft, aircraft or something like that. So it's, you can glean a lot of information from the topic descriptions. At the same time, if I were doing this one, I'd probably be making a phone call to ask, so is it really just Marine Corps? There's nobody else in the Navy that's using this? Is there any possibility in the future that somebody in the Navy might be using this? Or do they know of any of the other services that are adapting the same vehicle for potential use? And see if you can pick their brain a little bit. It's obvious they want you to focus on Marine Corps, but it'd be nice to know if that's the tip of the iceberg, if you will, in terms of the need as well as the opportunity.
Yeah. You want to, definitely emphasize, hey, looks like it's really important to Marine Corps, want to make sure that we're specific with that. Are there any other opportunities that we want to make sure that we're not missing things that you want to see addressed in terms of other components, things like that you can ask for. I think I've heard different things about the references here, but if a technical point of contact is going to list a couple of references, I would definitely go and visit those. Make sure that it may inform a certain approach that they were considering. And it may inform other aspects about this, the importance of this. So I don't think that these are inclusive, I don't think that they necessarily are always going to be spot on, but I would assume, that if the technical points of contact are involved in the decision for who's selected for these. So these are people that you want to get to know and understand and respect their opinions on this. So that's this example. So let's go now, since this is so that was kind of looking through one of our examples, the description. Why reading and knowing that that topic description is really, really important. Now let's go. What are the other components for this one that we're going to need if we decide that we want to reply to this proposal and submit a full proposal? I'm going back over here to the additional program information there to gather, and I just have that loaded here. This is that other website, and I don't know why it's such different. It is. I kind of consider it part of the DSIP portal because it just refers right to it, but it is a separate website.
Yeah, they call this the SBIR STTR homepage as opposed to the innovation portal. And it's like you're supposed to understand why you'd go to one versus the other, given those definitions. And again, we're going to have a third one here someday. So crazy.
But let's look at this live here. Just I wanted to do it live because I thought it would be better. Again, you have the cooking show screenshots in your thing here, and I'll scale this up a little bit. I'm not sure how it's showing for you. Hopefully this shows a little bit better. I'm just bringing a little bigger here. But here is where you will find the instructions. So this was a Navy traditional second release topic, DoD SBIR 22.2. So I'm going to click right there on that tab. It doesn't seem quite obvious that those are tabs, but these are little tabs. And when I clicked on this tab, it brings down below all of the components that are participating that have phase 1 SBIR, STTR, or SBIR topics here. And it gives you both the joint, I call them the joint or the DoD master instructions, and the component instructions. And Jim, I actually deleted that slide. I couldn't review the slide because there was a little bit of confusion on it. When I say the topic description, the DoD instructions, and then the component instructions, know that the component instructions are going to always take precedence because they may ask for something that the DoD instructions don't cover. So if there's a difference, go with what the component asks you to describe. But if no additional instructions are referenced, say if they want a white paper, for example, they ask for a white paper, but they don't tell you, maybe they say how many pages, but they don't tell you anything else. They also typically will say per the DoD instructions. So you have to go back to the DoD instructions and see what do they want in the technical white paper part of it. And you have to make sure that you're covering those things. I can totally drop this in the chat. You bet. Good question. So you guys can do this on your own. That's a great idea, David. So you can kind of look at that on your own. That is the slide. I'm going to do this real quick, just while this is the main DSIP portal, folks. And you can find topics and then this one from that DSIP, just like I'm showing you here. Go into this topic information and you'll find this. So let's go ahead and I think I am going to go ahead and just download these again and just because I didn't have them loaded here. I want to pull up the DoD instructions. Oh no, it did do that. That's nice. And I'm going to I open that up in a different tab, and I'm going to open up this the Navy instructions. And let's look at this a little bit. What's going to be expected in these if I want to submit to this topic? And feel free at any time. I'm going to say this is, if we look, actually, my little thing is covering how many pages here. It's blocked by the Zoom screen share thing, but there's many pages in this, in these instructions. There's many pages in the others. I do expect, though, for key, key components, that you actually do consume this, that you actually read through this. In some places, you probably will scan a little bit. They'll use them kind of as references, but you definitely want to make sure that you're paying attention to what they're asking for. This tells you which topics these instructions apply to. This gives you which program administrative points of contacts and which right here points of contacts that you want to look at. And these are important people to have reference and save their names and contact informations. And then your phase 1 submission instructions. I'm going to come here just to this page, proposal volumes.
We might mention, Ann, that there is one standardization that still exists at DoD, and that is your proposal is organized into what is called volumes.
Yeah.
And there'll be 6 volumes. You have to have 6 volumes, and the general content of all 6 is the same. So as shown here, volume 1 is a cover sheet, volume 2 is the technical proposal, volume 3, the cost, and so on. So that format is consistent across all of these DoD components. The place that it varies most dramatically is that volume 2 in terms of what they want you to put in there, how long it should be, and also whether you can take some of the things that would ordinarily be in volume 2 and actually move them down to volume 5, which is kind of a catch-all file box, if you will, of various documents. But again, volumes will be what you're dealing with, and there will always be 6 volumes that you have to prepare.
Right, great. So again, this is going to be giving you guys a peek at this, so that when you dig into this, you're like, okay, yeah, I kind of remember we kind of saw something like that. That's the goal here. And also to emphasize paying attention to kind of the differences between some of the subtle differences and sometimes not so subtle differences between what the components ask you for. But that is true. You're going to have a covered page. Again, these are all going to go into the submission portal. Again, we're not going into detail in terms of how to submit these. We're actually talking now about how to prepare and gather all of the components of what you need for a proposal.
And so an example then, Ann, of what you were saying was Navy says, it doesn't tell you really what to put into volume 2. What it tells you is do not exceed 10 pages. And then if we looked at the general instructions for DoD, it says 20 pages. Here. And it gives you this whole laundry list of what those components are in volume 2. So what you're doing is you're taking, here we go, scroll on down there. There we go. Identification, significance of the problem, opportunity, phase 1 technical objectives, and so on. You're gonna cover all of those sections. You're just gonna cover them in 10 pages rather than the standard, which is 20 pages. So you have to, you got to put a 10-gallon head into a 5-gallon hat or something like that. It's going to be cramming an awful lot of information into a lot less space.
Yeah, exactly. So here, thank you, Jim, because you got to where, one other thing. So we'll talk about, guys, I'm gonna talk today about, there's all of the components. You're gonna have letters of support. You're gonna have letters of commitment or support. You're gonna have facilities and equipment, a lot of these supplemental documents that they want, but the big pieces that, we help the most are the technical proposal reviews, the cost proposal reviews, and then, we can certainly look at other components as required, but those are typically more administrative types of things. So let's focus on the technical volume and the cost. We'll kind of peek at the cost a little bit too. But for the purposes of what are you going to do for the DoD? And if you're going to submit a proposal, you're thinking about your research project. I'm back on the Navy requested things. Let me go ahead and blow that up a little bit more. So hopefully you guys can see that a little bit better. Here in the component guidelines, they're going to tell you what the format should be. It should not exceed 10 pages. So we'll see some that say not exceed 5 pages, not exceed 25 pages. What is it? It's whatever the component wants. So do what they say. But in this case, make sure that you have if it's in Google Docs or if it's in, I'm actually bringing on a system I'm going to test out that actually can help format and kind of keep everybody's content in one single place. But if you have Google Docs or your own project management types of solution, make sure that you have your documents formatted according to how they want them. And again, it's a combination of making sure that everybody's semi on a level playing field, everybody's submitting the same amount of pages, the same amount of content by having the same, margins and things like that. Make it easy to read, make it easy to read. Another thing that will be important with easy to read. So again, this is the technical volume. They don't really tell you anything about this. So they're assuming that you are going over here to the DoD. I just clicked over to the DoD instructions. And this is what you need to put in those 10 pages for the Navy topic that you're replying to, that you're responding to. You want to have a document that you will upload into this system that has all of these headings. List these headings in the order given below your technical volume. So follow their instructions. It's not for you to jump through a nuclear flaming hoop. They're not just doing that, but maybe sort of. Can you follow instructions? But also they're reading many, many, many different proposals. So give them the information that they want in the order that they're expecting to see it so that they don't have to hunt and peck for what you're trying to do. Tell them the identification and significance of the problem or opportunity. Have that as a heading, a specific heading in your document. Have this, your technical objectives. We'll talk a little bit later about, well, we can even talk about it now. Technical objectives are really essential. That's going to be the core. That's the outline of your phase 1 proposal. It's 2, maybe 3, depends on the length of time that you have. Most important objectives that you want to tackle to de-risk your technology for future development. So you should have very clear, measurable technical objectives defined. You should have very clear scientific approaches, depending on what is, well, we can talk about that more and what that means with commercial solutions offerings and things like that. But you want to, have a technically sound approach to testing out that objective. And then you want to have very clear measurements as to, did this experiment work? Did this research prove feasibility or not for that specific objective? So have really clear objectives and then have a very clear statement of work that really clearly articulates what you're planning to do. And again, depending on the component and the topic, you may have 5 pages to get this done in a slide deck, no narrative required and just a slide deck, or you may have 10 pages or potentially more. You do want to include all of these as appropriate. Related work, relationship with future research and development, commercialization strategy is huge. Remember, we talked about this when we were looking at the description. The description tells you who is your DoD customer, really. You should be talking about how you will take the steps to get this in the hands of the program that needs it. So describe that. And these are all the parts of this. So you want to include everything here. And then actually just, I'm going to make sure I'm coming back. This is the statement of work. You want to have all of these components and part of your technical volume. And again, depending on, you may have to make it very distilled, depending on the page count that is required. But in 10 pages, I think you can, for a phase 1 proposal, you can very adequately address what you're going to need. If you are coming up and you can only have 5 pages, I think you're missing the mark somewhere. I'd much rather see people have, gosh, Ann, dang it, I got 12 pages. How do I cut this down? That's a much better position. And that's usually what people have. If you're coming up short in terms of page count, you're missing an opportunity to explain something else, in my opinion. And that doesn't mean you want to be verbose. It doesn't mean you want to be extra repetitive or say something poorly. But I think you're missing an opportunity. Go ahead.
Since we're talking the Navy topic, I also want to add Navy is template happy.
Yes.
They have templates for everything, and I did not check this one to see if they are all just recommended. And I know that the instructions are highly recommended that you use them.
Yeah.
Some of them may be required. I don't remember now, but the point is Navy thinks this is a great idea. And they think these templates are really helpful, and they put a lot of effort into it, and they highlight it. You know, if you don't use it, you're basically telling Navy they're stupid. They don't know what they're doing. You're smarter than they are. You don't need their help. You're insulting your potential customers. So I would highly recommend, even though it's just highly recommended, I would use their templates if I'm submitting to Navy. And actually, I think their templates are pretty good. The DSIP templates are mediocre at best, but Navy's are pretty good. So I don't think you're going to have to stretch yourself too hard to use one of their templates there.
Right. One last thing, guys, and I want to go ahead and go at least to another one, because I know that I kind of thought that these might take more time, but I think at least these first two examples will get you on the right track to looking at these, even if we don't get to a couple of those other examples to look at. What was the other thing that I mentioned? You want to look at what is the budget cap. They're going to be different. And I think the Army STTR was 173. This Navy SBIR, your phase 1 base amount is listed here in the component instructions. So that's going to be listed in the component instructions unless they defer to the DoD. So phase 1 base amount is 140. So plan your phase 1 proposal based on that. You do have a phase 1 option that cannot exceed $100,000. So they're giving you a base and an option for their Navy phase 1 proposals.
People,
go ahead.
Excuse me, and people misunderstand when it says option. They think, oh, so it's my option whether I propose it or not. That's not what they're saying. What they're saying is, give us a $140,000 project in which you prove the feasibility of your technical feasibility of your innovation. Then if we Navy like what you've done, and we've asked for your phase 2 proposal, and we want to award your phase 2, then we Navy will exercise that option and let you spend another $100,000 advancing the project further while they get your phase 2 in place. So 2 lessons: you always include a phase 1 option in a Navy phase 1. And number 2, you always prove the feasibility of your project within the base project, 140K. Right. I see a lot of projects where people don't prove it until the option, and that's too late because you've already submitted your phase 2 proposal, and you can't win phase 2 if you cannot say convincingly with data that your phase 1 proved the feasibility of your idea.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the cost volume. Guys, we are not going to go into a lot of detail about preparing cost volumes because I definitely highly recommend go to sbir.gov and announcements and events. I can send that out to you as well. And or I can send you our link for our July one. But for this, if you're considering this one, my colleague in Wyoming and Jim are going to be doing, and she's published that up on SBIR. So I think she's open to people come from outside of Wyoming participating. Jim has a couple of cost proposal workshops you do not want to miss if you have not been through that process before. It's really important, and it'll really help you with that part of your proposal. So I'm talking technical stuff, right? How do we respond to these? Let's go back now. I'm going to go back. Let's look at another one. I wanted to. So we did a Navy traditional. Navy, we love you. So they're just voice of reason types of folks. Go ahead, Jim.
You want to do maybe, because they're the bread and butter normal, if you will. How about Air Force? One of the AFWERX for kind of the opposite extreme there.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and look at this. This example too. I had was I'm going to go back here and I'm going to, let's remove these filters. And this one was AFWERX. I do believe it was I'm just going to do that one. And so the Air Force, Space Force is listed under Air Force topics. So we can find all of these here. Again, here's someone else who's asking about something and they're missing. This is a traditional. So Air Force does have some traditional topics similar to what the Navy one was. Different component instructions, different limits probably. Don't have that base option type of format, I don't think as well, but it will be very similar, very specific need. They'll have very specific technical points of contacts and things like that. They also have some direct to phase 2 in here, but let's come down to this X. What does that X mean? That X means that it's coming through the AFWERX systems, which means it's a open call. They're a little bit more open to seeing, what's out there in the world and how can it address an important Air Force need. And I have, this one is it, X224. So this is AFWERX. That's what that X means. It's on that annual BAA. So it's not 222. If it were 222, it'd be the one that's in this release or this current BAA. It's the annual release. And it's open call solutions.
Excuse me, it's their own annual.
It is their own annual.
BAA. They're not in with all of the other components in the annual. They're doing their own annual this time. In typical AFWERX, just we're going to do our own thing to hell with the rest of the military. So.
Yeah, exactly. Now I wanted to point out here on here it shows the open date. So you have until May 17th to post or ask possibly, and typically they don't have open, they just want the ask me anything, but they do list a technical point of contact. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But they close, they're not expecting submissions or submissions don't have to be submitted until September. Here.
It's at least my reading in is that you can submit anytime between the 18th of May and the 2nd of September. So whenever the heck you feel like submitting, you can do so.
Right, exactly.
And that's their way of doing open is, here's this broad open topic and just whenever you feel like submitting something, you just go ahead and do that. Yeah.
No, guys, kind of a reminder, and again, I think we probably will use this as the last one because I want to make sure we have time for some open questions as well, but the other two will kind of follow the similar format. Here's a technical point of contact. Typically AFWERX with their open calls, they just say they have a bunch of Ask Me Anything webinars. I think they are trying to be a little bit more responsive. However, think about this. This is a technical point of contact. Jenna is overseeing some of this. Her contact information is there, maybe for some specific questions, but they're asking you to submit a good idea to them. They don't have a specific, hey, we need to address this thing. They have maybe some focus areas, perhaps. And actually, I didn't go jump out to go see if they had those really listed here. I'll double check on that sometimes, but typically they're probably, if you talk to Jenna, she's going to say, hey, join one of our Ask Me Anything webinars. They have those regularly. And that's when you have an opportunity to ask a bunch of general questions. But since it's not a specific product that they're looking for development right now necessarily yet, she can't really give you any advice in terms of what they're looking for. However, they do cover all of and again, on May 18th, her information will be gone. So if you do want to keep her as a contact, if you think that's relevant, copy this now, download this information now, because it will be gone from the website and in all of the documents that are online here too. This describes, again, even though these are open, don't disregard the topic description, because they are talking about what they want to see accomplished. If you have an important technology that you think can really address an important Air Force need, they'll talk to you about what they want you to show them, what they want you to find.
You really need, in my opinion, Ann, you really need an interpreter for the AFWERX topics, because you really have to read between the lines. And to give you a little bit of background, AFWERX came out with kind of this in your ear kind of attitude towards Air Force SBIR program. They were going to do their own thing. Air Force SBIR didn't know what they were doing, yada, yada, yada. And AFWERX comes up with this idea that you, small business, can propose anything that you can imagine that you think the Air Force might be interested in. And if we think it's an interesting idea, we'll give you $50,000 and you can spend the money to go find an Air Force customer in phase one. And it's just, you know, the question of innovation is there, the question of high risk technology is there, the question of phase one needing to be technical feasibility is there, and they just got beat up one side and down the other for their attitude and their cavalier attitude towards the policy and law. And so now the topic is written much more carefully. You know, just like that first sentence under phase one, determine insofar as possible the scientific and technical merit and feasibility. That's exactly what they want you to see, because that's what the critics want to see. But then you read a little bit farther and it's, well, really what we're looking for is, if you think this is going to be of interest, use this money to go find that DoD customer. You know, so it's
study should.
yeah. So it's, you know, they say things that they know the critics want to hear, but then you kind of have to put that up against what they say they actually want and what they've proven that they want over time. So it's a tricky one to try to respond to their topics, because their topics don't tend to, in my opinion, accurately reflect what they're really looking for, which is give us an idea that's already has non-defense applications, non-defense customers preferably. And in phase one, it's now 75K. We'll give you up to 75K, spend most of the money finding the Air Force customer, and confirm with the customer what exactly they want and how your technology will have to be adapted. And that's prepares you for phase two. And that's what they're really trying to say in a whole lot of words that don't necessarily convey that very clearly. And of course, I didn't convey it very clearly over the past 4 minutes, but
no, you did. And I guess kind of going back to that, guys, right? Again, you know, we're Jim and I are geeking out about this, because it's you know, we're here to help and support you. Did I get this in the right one? Which one was this one? Which is this? Yeah, that is the right one. Okay. Yeah, it was back to the phase one. Yeah, it's the phase one. So I say that they typically, they'll sort of describe, this sort of is your technical objectives outline. Don't just repeat these, right? But your technical objectives should be based on these three criteria. It's only one of them really talks about, you know, core technology development and feasibility testing. But part of their goal is, hey, find your Air Force customer, ask them what they require. And it's kind of hard to define how you're going to test out feasibility when you're not really sure, when you don't really have requirements yet, because you don't have a clear description. So it is going to be, you have to do a little bit of this. Let me gather requirements, but let me project as to what I think the requirements may actually be, and put that into there. And then also describe how, you know, how you expect this to be used broadly as well. It's interesting. We've had people successfully do these. I want to say, at first blush, when these first came out, people thought, well, this is great. They're open. I can kind of consider this like an investigator initiated type of thing. You know, not that much, right? I actually, and in my opinion, Jim, I don't know what you think, but I kind of think these are actually harder. I really do think you need to make sure that you're finding your Air Force customer. That Navy topic, if you're successful, they're going to be ready for you. They're lining up. It's kind of yours to lose. You want to make sure that you have a good team. You want to make sure that you can be a good partner. But if you can perform for them, they're like, hey, yeah, let's get this to the next step. Here, they're like, yeah, tell me, maybe if you do something we like, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
But
it's a little flirty, right?
But the big difference or the advantage here is that literally, and now it's $75,000
Yeah, yeah,
to go out and knock on doors at the Air Force and try to convince somebody at the Air Force that they should want a version of your technology for their use, and then to kind of define what you got to do to your technology to meet that need. And
right.
it's a very interesting approach. And again, I think it's very contrary to what is supposed to be done in phase one and what some people argue is the law in phase one, but they continue to do it, and it's extremely popular. They get many proposals, and I think they funded like 300 the middle of last year. And in fact, they
Yeah,
didn't participate in the last regular solicitation because they were so overwhelmed with the
they were
number of
inundated.
proposals and
Yeah,
projects. Yeah, they just didn't have the resources to fund anymore.
yeah.
And
But
now they're back. I think I was counting. I think Air Force is in 4 different places in the SBIR STTR program now, because you got the
yeah,
annual call
traditional. Mhm.
SBIR,
Yeah,
the annual call STTR, the traditional SBIR, and then there's another special call that's not 22. See the top one up there, Air Force
yeah,
22.2. So they've got their own
yeah,
22,
yeah.
outside of the DoD 22.2,
I
and different
know.
from there 22.4. And come on, guys, how confusing can you make
I
this
know.
for everybody in the world who's trying to participate in these programs? But
Yeah. I would almost think that, you know, it may even be, you know, go ahead and try to, they may need to change, make amendments, but go to an annual set of instructions and then go ahead and release topics. I think they'd be better off maybe in that way. Um, but let's do that. So I want to highlight this. We're bringing this up, guys. Again, we just have a few minutes left, and we want to make sure that we're giving you guys time to look at things, and hopefully this has been helpful. Definitely now's the time. Ping us with questions. Go ahead and unmute and say, hey, I'm Jim. We're happy to do that because I'm not necessarily paying attention to the chat, as you may see. But let's look at what Air Force is going to be looking for in this type of example. This is our open call. It is that a different BAA. So I want to make sure I'm pulling the different instructions to make sure that I'm referencing everything that they're going to require. And again, this is where if the component instructions are terse or don't describe something, go ahead and go back to the DoD. Now, these are kind of, I don't know if everything's in this one actually now. I don't know if they're referencing the DoD joint, but I would go to the 2.2 or 22.4 DoD just to make sure if there's anything that you're missing, what might you need to include here. But again, focusing on the technical volumes of this, the core, the meat of the proposal. And you have all these other pieces to it, but this is going to be the story that you're telling them. What they want is a slide deck. And I'm going to go ahead and pull open because I had that, or maybe I'll just go here because I thought I had that open here. Oh, let me go ahead and I'll save it here and then open it. It's saving in the wrong folder. I already had it saved, but I want to pull it open here. Come here, open. Is what they're going to ask you for. And they give you a template. Their technical volume. They do say in the instructions, you can include a narrative if you want to, maybe 5-page, I think, but they said it's optional, I believe, in this one. And we'll go back to that. But the core, what they want to see is, give us a pitch deck, do it in standard format. Don't do the wide version like I have on my slides typically. And put your information here. So in some ways you might think, great, thanks, Russell. Russell has to leave. But this gives you helpful information, kind of getting started. How do I address these questions? This is what they're asking you for. And it doesn't mean that it's sort of a template, but it still can be somewhat unclear. And that's where Jim and I, or someone similar in your state, can help you by reviewing the proposals, making sure that they're compliant, making sure that you have everything in it that is necessary. But this is what they're talking about when they say They want a 25, sorry about this, I'm trying to go here. When they want, for their technical volume, they want a slide deck that is limited to 25 slides. And if you have excess of 25 slides, it will not be considered for review or award. So make sure that you have that under 25, and use that template. They've said, here you go. You can also, obviously arrange things or put different content a little bit in there. It is a guideline, but you should cover as applicable everything that they're requesting there. Yeah, 11 required content slides. The attachment, the example is provided there. The white paper is optional and the content is at the offeror's discretion. Therefore, a template is not provided. So I don't know, Jim, what do you think about those optional technical narratives?
I think first of all, I think their slide deck example is ugly, and it strikes me as, I'm visualizing a room of decision makers, and it's a Wednesday afternoon and midday, and you're throwing them slides that look like this, and they're very wordy. There's no graphics. It's just really ugly, in my opinion. So I'd be very, fine. It's an example and use it, to get you started, but I would not make my slides look busy and wordy like these are. Right. I think on the white paper, I would probably try to include a white paper that's maybe 3 or 4 pages that summarizes the project and just hits, because there's no format content required. I would just try to hit some of the key points, the things that I think will really sell this project to the AFWERX and to its people. I certainly wouldn't write a 15 or 20 page white paper.
No, you're right. You're right. Because I think that, your technical objectives here, your work plan, great point, Jim. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I'm sitting to say, hey, well, they give you a template. Jim and I do proposal labs as well. I work and working on that. Use imagery in your technical white papers, and sparingly as appropriate, graphs, charts. If you have pictures of a preliminary prototype, again, remember, this is feasibility, but if you have data that you can represent in charts that can help them, inform them about this, add those in here. Make this, go to Presentation Zen, right? And it's somewhere in between really technical like this and Presentation Zen, kind of, if they had a baby, make your proposal pop to them. Again, AFWERX is talking about, hey, we want a big acquisition grade. We want to act a little bit more like the private sector. Go ahead and make it appealing visually to them as well. But I say, this really, it's sort of an example, but really they've just reiterated their instructions as what they want on each of these types of slides. So go ahead and use those as references for the instructions as to, here's a set of slides. I should put this type of content on this slide, and make sure that you have it there for them. I'd take off their AFWERX at the bottom, make it, brand it for yourself, but make sure that you're including the proposal, your company name, the solicitation, that you're responding to, the topic number, on each of these slides, certainly for reference. And boy, we have just touched on the surface. We've got 12 more minutes and we have to stop. We have a hard stop at the top of the hour. I want to make sure that I open this up for questions. Let me go ahead here and just maybe pull back open my other slides here. And I'm going to go ahead from my current slide, and let me go back to these. So again, guys, I gave you sort of the cooking slides for those other examples, but very similar, just to kind of give you a taste of what are they looking for, what are the types of things that you want to be taking into account. Take advantage of this opportunity to talk with the technical point of contact for a topic that you're interested in. Don't ask them about how to apply. That's what the instructions are for. Ask them about their approach, what they're needing. If you have an idea, don't challenge them, but say, hey, I would like to learn a little bit more about who the end user is, this or that, something relevant. And I say that even if you think I don't have a question to ask them, try to have a conversation with them. It's gonna put you in their head, and they'll be looking forward to reviewing your proposal.
And that expires 2 weeks from yesterday. So
Yep.
you got your homework assignment. If you want to compete in the current funding round, that's your job in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm also, going to emphasize here, TechLink has done a number of economic impact studies, and they've also looked back at really successful awardees, those companies that are just hitting it out of the park. And the ones that are really successful at leveraging DoD to launch and scale their products are just narrowly focused on how do I address the customer's needs. Knowing, and I'm going to say that, we said that before, even with those AFWORKs, those special topics, those open topics, your goal, your number one job is product market fit. Get to know your customer as soon as you possibly can in phase one. They're giving you that opportunity in with the AFWORK commercial solutions offerings types of things, those open call ones. But they're also in the Navy. Get to know your customers as much as you possibly can during that phase one. That's going to be really vitally important for that. And always make sure that you're selecting topics that are in line with what you want your company to be. Don't try to say, well, I could do that. I probably could do that. But not sure. Other thoughts in these final things. And again, I want to make sure, thank you. I'm so glad, Karen, that you are, appreciate this webinar. Other things to think about. There are registrations. If you do not have your company formed yet, get your company formed, get your employee identification number from the IRS, register with sam.gov, and register on the DSIP portal. And all of the registrations, those are all listed in the solicitation. If you don't already have that done, get to know your agency, take advantage, find out what their research objectives are, take a look at the Navy's strategies, their fiscal year to 2026 strategies, things like that. That's going to help you to talk about and articulate what's important to the Marines if you're going to address that particular topic, for example. Make sure that you're paying attention, getting to know your client, your customer. Take advantage of any types of webinars that the agencies by signing up for the DSIP portal. Here, the registrations are listed on this as well. So PTACs are available in your area. Every state has one, and they can help you with the SAM registrations if you do not already have that there. So I'm trying to go here and here. Those are the last kind of little things I wanted to make sure that we were touching on. Start planning now, guys. I have this. I can share this with anybody that's happy to. This is a very simple Gantt chart for kind of a very simple traditional type of DoD topic under the current BAA, like just a checklist. Make something like this for yourself, because you have just a shy 8 to 10 weeks before your proposals are due. You want to make sure that you're getting everything in place. You want to get letters of support. You want to make sure that you have all your facilities lined up, your leases. You need to get pricing for materials that may be required as appropriate, things like that. Don't wait till the last minute. You also want to be looking at your cost proposals and making sure you're developing all of those pieces for the complete proposal package. Make sure that everything is done offline. That DSIP portal, that submission portal, is not the most brilliant thing, but if you have everything organized offline, when it's time to upload, at least 2 days before its due date, you want to start uploading things. You can upload and start saving things. Do that as soon as possible. You want to make sure that everything's in order offline, and then you just submit it via the portal. But I would not try to use it as a tool to do things. And then also, I have another little planning tool that we share with our clients here. This is just, again, make sure that you're submitting something that's in line with what the DoD wants, but it is that you want to just give them confidence that you can effectively carry out this technology, this research and development project. You don't want to just say, hey, we got this great idea. We think you'll really like it. Tell them how you're going to test it out. Tell them how you're going to prove it. and make sure that you understand all the resources that are involved with what you can do, because we don't, this is not a cost proposal workshop, but our goal is you should not lose business or lose money on these projects. You don't want to lose money just to get your foot in the door with the DoD. You don't have to do that. You want to make sure that you're demonstrating to them that you are a very good small business partner for them. So have a very clear, well-defined statement of work. And I think that was it. I mean, I'm talking fast because I know we just have a few minutes. Are there any questions or any last thoughts that you have? I wanted to make sure, you know, people know, getting to know the each component has a little bit of an SBIR website as well. Some of the smaller ones may not have something more elaborate, but DARPA, Air Force, AFWorks, Navy, and Army have really thorough SBIR sites that tell them about the types of their program nuances. What do you think, Jim? What are we missing? What else should we talk to them about?
The only thing that I would add before we get any last minute questions is some of you may just have a severe headache at this point and go, what a mess, and how am I supposed to figure all this out, and this and that BAA, and all I can tell you is everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's trying to figure all this stuff out. And the one resource you do have, and Ann can talk more about this, but her office is available to counsel and consult, coach with small companies that are in Montana, and I guess there's some breadth to that, and that you can speak to. But you know, that's a way to get somebody that's got better understanding of DoD to work with you to kind of help you channel your way through all these various websites and agencies and BAAs and topics and so on. And you know, if that will be helpful, then certainly take advantage of that opportunity that she has.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So happy to support. My mandate is definitely to support Montana companies or those companies that are affiliated with TechLink somehow, licensing DoD technology or VA technology, and with some exception with some of the affiliation with Montana University, partnerships with the Montana University system. However, here on the SBIR website, you can find someone kind of just like me in your state. Currently, there are 33 FAST providers one in each state across the nation. Next year, they're hoping to have close to 48. Hopefully that is the case. But even if they're not specifically funded under the FAST program, like my program is, there are companies, there are small business development centers, there are procurement technical assistance centers, and they can either themselves within that group have expertise in SBIR, or they may be able to connect you with someone in this state that can help you with SBIR and STTR. One of the reasons I am a big fan of ensuring that people are connected with their local resources is because your state has different things that you have opportunities for. You might have SBIR matching funds in your state. Montana does. Other states have more than we do. They'll be also be able to hook you up with accelerators, other angel and VC partners, other people that are going to be important on your commercialization journey. So that's why I'm really a big fan of making sure that you access those local resources, but definitely feel free, ping me if you can't find the person in your area, and I can make sure I'm hooking you up with the right folks for you. So I don't see a lot of questions coming through. Everybody, thank you so much for your time. I did put a little note here. I'm going to put a plug here on tomorrow. If anybody has questions about intellectual property for SBIR, I'm going to be holding a webinar tomorrow with one of our IP patent attorneys here in Montana. You're welcome to participate in that. Also, I will send out as a follow-up email a link to the registration for Jim's, for Wyoming's cost proposal, because that's going to hit before the due date for this one. But also, if you want to have a full day, July 28th, Jim and I will be back at it again, talking about all things cost proposals, regardless of agency. And I highly recommend that you do that, because you'll learn so much. All right, you guys, thank you.
Good job. Thanks, guys.
Have a great afternoon. Thanks, Jim. Talk to you soon.
Yes.